Would you please stand for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we beseech your divine guidance and keep us ever mindful of our obligation. Grant us, dear Lord, wisdom, tolerance, and we may well serve our county and fulfill our trust. Amen.
Amen. Move to approve the minutes of April 18th.
Second.
Discussion? Roll?
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, do we have any public comment regarding any pendings for today? Not. We actually have acclamation to present. Is Howard Eberts here? Hello, Howard. I'm going to come up and we're going to read some nice stuff about you here. We have a resolution of commendation proclaiming April 28, 2020 as Workers' Memorial Day in Medina County. Whereas on December 28, 1970, President Richard Nixon signed into law the Occupational Safe Health Act, which went into effect April 28, 1971. 1689, community workers and local government leaders gather in April to commemorate who have lost their lives working to provide a good standard of living for their families and communities. And despite the OSHA Act, intended to provide American workers the right to a safe place and requiring employers to provide safe conditions. Tens of thousands of American workers are killed by workplace injuries and occupational disease. Tens of thousands more are permanently disabled and millions are injured and ill. And concerned Americans are determined to prevent these. All employers, including local governments, are urged to dedicate their efforts to improve workplace safety, seek stronger health standards, and to treating workers with dignity as we pursue constant improvement in worker safety. And Americans can honor our workers by observing Work Memorial Day as a day to remember those victims of workplace injuries and by rededicating ourselves to improving safety and health in every American workplace. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of Medina County, Ohio, hereby proclaim Friday, April 28th, 2023, as Workers' Memorial in Medina County and ask all citizens to recognize and honor all workers killed, injured, and disabled on the job, thank them for their service, offer sympathy to their loved ones, and to respect today's workers by providing spaces.
Approve.
Second.
Roll.
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweating.
Would you like to say a few words?
Sure.
We are going to get a picture with you at this part.
Thank you. I want to thank the Medina County Commissioners for their support of Workers' Memorial. I am actually a Medina resident, so this is a great day for me because I've wanted to include you guys in the city of Medina and recognizing Workers' Memorial Day. You know, every day on the job, teen workers go to work and don't come home afterwards. So we got being vigilant and protecting workers' safety. So thank you for your recognition today, and I appreciate you all having me here.
All right, we're going
Thank
to
you.
be holding the resolution, and here you go. Come on up, guys.
Oh, thanks. I'll take this microphone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good to hear. Thanks.
Okay, next up we have resolutions, sanitary engineer.
Made it. Three resolutions for consideration today. The first is accepting a bid for a 2-year contract for the hauling and disposal of cake biosolids and hauling of liquid waste activated sludge and DAF float. The second is authorizing the sanitary engineers a case wheel loader for the Liverpool wastewater treatment plant through state purchasing. The third and final is authorizing the sanitary engineer to enter into an agreement with Jones and Henry Engineers for professional services to assist in construction management for the installation of permanent generators at the Ledge plant and Westfield well site.
Move to approve the 3 resolutions.
Second.
Discussion? Roll?
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have Barb Walton, Solid Waste.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I have one resolution for consideration, authorizing the district director to advertise for bids for the countywide single-stream community drop clean program from the Medina County Solid Waste Management District.
Move to approve.
Any discussion?
I just have a quick question. Are these the bins that?
That's correct.
Okay, so we actually, Commissioner Hambley and I were at a Farm Bureau meeting and specifically came up that in some of the rural areas, there's some issues with people, dumping things that shouldn't be there, but then also when there's wind and other elements, it causes problems to surrounding property owners. Is there anything in the contract, or will there be in the West that can kind of have some requirements to contain that on site?
The requirements, there's actually penalty clauses. It's the contractor's responsibility to recyclables that are on the ground and any recyclables that fall out of when they're dumping into the trucks. That's their responsibility. So if they don't adhere, is a $100 penalty per occurrence until it's rectified. As far as anything that's illegally dumped, they are required to contact us immediately that we can remove whatever item is being illegally dumped.
Okay. And the adjacent property owner was noticing that would they be able to contact your office
Most
as well?
definitely.
Okay.
And we've had one issue that we had where some of the recyclables that had fallen out of the container or blew out of the container because the wind, if the containers are set at a certain angle, the wind can actually lift those heavy lids, believe it or not. So sometimes that is a factor. And so we went out and cleaned up an area next to a resident's home, and it was been accumulating for probably over the winter.
Yeah.
So what we did was we rearranged the bins so that the wind wouldn't catch the lids, solved the problem.
Yeah, and then the carriers probably know to replace
Yes.
them the way that they're situated.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if I could, I guess, as far as my understanding, a lot of this is a responsibility, too. I mean, the community, there's the policing forces likewise, and I know in some of the other years, they've had those issues, and unfortunately, their abusers basically are gonna throw their trash and throw there, and really, it's a matter of everybody kind of working together and making it, that's for recycling, and of course, I'm glad we have the provisions there to make sure that they're doing their, but likewise, as a citizen, if you're seeing somebody do some dumping, it's important for you to report. We basically can restrict or actually do everything we can, doesn't happen. I know in many of the communities that have gone to, rather than have the communities, they have curbside recycling, and that kind of resolves that issue, but not everybody is wanting to do that.
That's correct. And our numbers are on every bin, so they can contact us, or any resident that
Right.
sees illegal dumping.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Barb.
Thank you.
Roll?
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes. Thank you. We have Denise Testa, from our planning director.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have one resolution for your action today on the enter into a contract Felder for the administration of the Community Housing Impact and Preservation Program, also known as CHIP, and using Kleinfelder to submit the program year 23 CHIP program applicant to the state of Ohio on behalf of Medina County.
I move to approve.
Second.
Roll?
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
All right,
Thank you,
you.
Denise. Okay, next we have Holly Murin, Human Resources Director.
Good morning. The third resolution is being pulled until next week. It's going to be 2 resolutions today.
Okay.
The personal changes resolution, week's new hires, 2 in sanitary, 1 in transit, 3 at office for older adults. 8 rate increases, 2 in sanitary, 3 at county home, and 3 at transit. 3 promotions in sanitary, 1 change in maintenance, 1 leave of maintenance, appointment canceled in county home. Second reason is amending the table of organization for the building inspection department.
I move to approve both resolutions.
Second.
Discussion? Roll?
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Chris Jacob, our county administrator. No, we have Brett, our director. That's not what the sheet says, but okay.
Good morning. We have a total of 9 resolutions for duration today. The first one is just increasing appropriations for various funds. A few increases, a few decreases. Ones of note are the transition for the purchase of some excess vehicles and moving money over for ARPA funds to fund the OSU move. See those later on as well. We have some reference for various funds, just categorizing income within expenditure adjustments for various funds. The funds that you see are actually for the OSU move. They were originally credited under our capital and under maintenance. We have cash transfer various funds. These are money moving over to transit from their fund, as well as money moving over to the ARPA fund, one of the ARPA funds that holds everything over to account for the money for the OSU extension. We have expenses for the Juvenile Detention Center. They would like some light refreshment events. A contract furniture for the courthouse. This went through state purchasing contracts with WB Mason, the amount of $203,724.66 for the renovation 1841 courthouse. Next one that we have is trusses for adult probation department. And then we have de minimis travel expenses for the elected officials. We've grouped your meals and lunch meets that for the various that you guys to attend into one measure so that we don't have to do this every month. And then we have people that are going to the ODJFS conference down in Columbus. And then the prosecutor had a small request for a conference for him. And then finally, we have the bills for the week. Payment for the county bills in the amount of $1,019,458.48. Copies of all of those bills are included at the auditor's office.
Move to approve the 9 resolutions.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I guess just to make regarding the chamber events and so forth, that you basically lumped them together. If we don't use them, obviously it doesn't get charged off of that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, very good. All right.
Rule?
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so now we are on to department updates. First, Debbie Kiley, our Job and Family Services Director.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First, just 3 resolutions for your consideration this morning. The first is authorizing the county auditor to transfer funds from the JFS Public Fund. That is authorizing the county auditor to transfer from JFS Children's Services SCPA Fund to the Public Assistance Fund. And the last one, authorizing the auditor to transfer funds from the PCSA Workforce or JFS Public Assistance Fund.
Move to approve the 3 resolutions.
Second.
Roll?
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Department, just really quick for you this morning, our SNAP recipients remain over 100. Our recipients are just over 30 individuals, and our Medicaid recipients are still hovering around 27. We're still in that process of certifying our Medicaid recipients since the end of the emergency. The Department of Medicaid has changed their processes several times, so it's impeding our progress to get those things done, but staff are pivoting well and moving forward with them. We have out of the total in April that needed to be recertified, we have like probably half of completed. It's a good number. It's 50% doesn't always sound really good, but it's a good number, considering the other counties in the state. Child support, they continued 7,300 cases for support collections, and since October of 2022, the division has managed and collected over $9 million in current support payments. In our Child Protective Division, we received 183 calls reporting abuse last month. We have 147 children in care, 120 foster families, and 16 are in residential facilities. We have one who's aging out. He's going to be 18. Participating in an independent living program where he's levels of finishing school, going to work, and other daily activities that will hopefully success after he leaves our care. And then lastly, the Rising Up and Moving On Awards is today, so I hope to stay here as we honor families and a member of our personnel. That's it. Questions?
I do
Yeah.
not. Thank you so
Fantastic.
much,
Thank you.
Debbie. Great job.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Shannon Ryan, our Transit Director.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Departmental update. March was a busy month for transit. We continue with our Medina, our Wadsworth Flex. I'm getting ahead of myself. That'll come next. Our MC Flex in Wadsworth yielded some really good results. We went from 339 in March of 22 for ridership in Wadsworth to 675. So we made a significant impact. We heard that loud and clear from our drivers. We actually heard that from the customers too, our passengers. I met with a group at the Suprema Center on the 19th and just heard nothing but good news. The one hitch, and I spoke with Commissioner Hambley about it, was they want to go to bingo at 10 a.m. And that is a challenge for us, more and more people. Many of those folks are riding demand buses, which is much more costly. Now they're riding the Flex. So just call your attention to a few things as far as numbers to support the efficiency of the process. Like I said, that ridership increase. But if you look at the revenue hours for the Flex loop, basically our loop was 1439 when it comes to the number of hours. We used 1,271 to get more ridership. We also traveled about 200 less miles to do that. So we're saving fuel, we're decreasing our miles, and we double our ridership. So the process works. Just really happy the team. The team did a great job to make sure they support it with the customers. Everybody's all in. Technology works. We have probably about 10 to 12 people that use the app regularly, and a few are trying it. I think most folks are calling, which is okay with us too. I just also would like to thank for the support with the new vehicles. We're getting ready to roll those out once we get those paid for and tagged and titled and everything gets done. They're decaled and ready to go. They're really going to help us provide a better service to our customers. They're a little more cost efficient with fuel and things like that than our bigger buses, but we're going to try them on different routes. We also signed we were awarded Ace Taxi, the out of county for Job and Family Services. Just recently, we had 2 bidders. Job and Family is just asking for more, and we're able to accommodate them through our partners with Ace Taxi. We had 2 bidders, and Ace Taxi won on experience and cost. So, yes.
Question on you mentioned the 1439 hours to 1271
Yes.
for increased ridership. That's for all the non-demand service, is that right?
That's correct. That's for all the service for the cities.
So if you broke that out in Wadsworth, I assume those numbers would be even more impressive?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
We saw a 44%, I mentioned it before, 44% of the total miles traveled to percentage of revenue service to 44%.
Yeah.
So 44% of the time when that bus is moving, there's people on it, which is a big win from 8 or 9% from previously.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
That's great.
it will show when we move into Medina and keep going forward. Medina's going to be we're going to have to wrap our hands around it with the community and make sure they understand, but I think it's going to be even more.
Yeah, but as a percentage of ridership, Wadsworth is a smaller piece of the pie. So as you implement that in, right. In the other
yes.
areas, I would think that would move the needle even more. So
I think we'll get a lot more bang for our buck, as people call it, when we attempt to do this and move forward. Yes.
Yeah, I guess for the discussion, when you start talking about one event that you know that's predictable as to the day and time, I know we can't run a bingo bus just for bingo. How do we accommodate that demand, and how would we then anticipate Medina be able, there's got to be a lot of those kind of
There's a
things
few
that
in
happen.
Medina, but
Yeah.
the Suprema Center, we're going to work with Office for Adults in Medina, but back
Right.
to Wadsworth.
Yeah.
If we move that service about 30 minutes, starting 30 minutes earlier,
In
we'll
terms
be
of the
okay.
service.
yeah.
Right, okay.
So
Yeah.
we'll move some hours around, knowing the
okay.
cost savings we're having. We should be able to accommodate a 30-minute earlier service, which will allow us to take more people to that destination. There's
Got
two
it.
buses running, but the other one doesn't start till a little later.
Right, so
we're
you
looking
just started sooner for that day? Because it's a,
essentially every day, because
Every
we're
day?
seeing,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
a lot of folks like to go to breakfast and things like that there.
good, all right.
I did get a nice email from Margaret Patrick, and the city council's very pleased with the way it's going. There are positive results too. So I think the momentum. I will say though, we're at capacity. We were carrying 10, 12 people a day on that Wadsworth loop, that one bus. We're 45 people a day,
Wow.
easy now.
Well, I know Mayor Lawbaugh is very happy. I mean, all the reports are within their administration and so forth. Very happy with how we've handled it, and certainly the expectation is we'll continue to actually see some growth in its use. So which is a great thing to have.
And then it looks like Brunswick had about a 30% increase year over year. Is there anything that explains that, or just increased demand?
Brunswick dropped off for a little bit. It's coming back.
Getting back to normal.
Gotcha.
It is kind of a fluctuating, month over month is different, year over year is very different.
Mm-hmm.
But in my mind, we'll get a lot out of Brunswick when we do this.
I'll just say historically, Brunswick has had fixed routes since going back to, BTA, going back to the 80s.
Right.
So they're kind of used, and having lived there, of having the fixed routes. But Wadsworth Transit's relatively new compared to Brunswick.
Gotcha.
In terms of a fixed route and having that kind of service. We'd have a demand, but it was very minimal use. And over the last decade, obviously, our presence is, and particularly with this pilot, our presence is significantly
That's
increased in Wadsworth. Brunswick, it's almost like trying to return to normal.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we're not going to be able to enhance the service maybe in the future with a flex and maybe some fixed routes.
Connections to Medina and that sort.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
All right. Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. Next up, we have Stacy Malakar, our Director of MCBDD.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Thank you. I've got some handouts for you, so I'll send those your way, a packet of paper. First thing I want to start off with is our state performance audit was completed, as everybody knows. Again, it shown some really positive things. There were no surprises. A few takeaways. It was recognized that MCBDD is more accurate with the revenue and expenditure projections compared to our peers. We take a conservative approach to our financial forecasting and practices, and we maintain an appropriate cash balance in line with our peers across the state. So it was very helpful, and we got some good information out of that. Next thing, March, we did a developmental disabilities dialogue roundtable. We had legislators there. We had Senator Romachuk. We had Representative Miller, and of course, Commissioner Harrison came, and we're very appreciative of that. And it was just an opportunity for some of our local providers, for our direct support professionals, for families and individuals, just to really share with our legislators the effect of this DSP crisis and make them aware of how it's affecting people in their everyday life. And so it was a great opportunity. It was well received. So we were very pleased with that. April is Autism Acceptance Month. We no longer say awareness, because when you talk about awareness, it's you're trying to communicate that there's something different, something wrong that we need to be aware of. You talk about acceptance, what we're saying is people with autism are valued and just like the rest of us. Interestingly enough, 1 in 36 children will be diagnosed with autism. That is up significantly from last year where it was 1 in 54 people. So yeah, we're seeing an increase, and what they're attributing it to is one, doctors, medical professions are much more knowledgeable in diagnosing this earlier and making referrals earlier. Hence, we have seen across the state increase of early intervention numbers. And they've also taken a look at that autism spectrum, and they've widened it a bit with classified some other things in there. So it's a trend, and we know it. And so what's that going to mean to us? We're already seeing early intervention increasing, so that we know that there are going to be, we'll continue to see more people that are going to be in need of our services in the future. Leadership Academy. So we just started our Leadership Academy. This is a new initiative. We're working with people with developmental disabilities that have an interest or a passion to be more involved in their community. So we're very excited. We have 4 candidates. We had about 9 people actually apply, and we had our first session, and it very exciting. And so what we're going to work with folks on, it's a 6-month program. We're going to talk about what does it mean to be a leader, the roles, the responsibilities, what's your personal leadership profile, how to communication and listening, how to be a good leader, problem solving, interview skills, and also really what types of leadership opportunities are out there. We've got some folks that right now are advocating at the state level with legislators, and so how do we help them find some opportunities where they can find their niche in the community and be part of it. So we're very excited for that. One of the things I will add is with the current budget, one of the topics that is in the budget is that they're having at least one person with developmental disabilities on a board. So there's that proposed legislation. Currently, as you know, right now, we have to have at least 3 people that either have a immediate family member or are themselves a person that receives services. So we're seeing that trend. Committed to inclusion. So we're continuing this program, Committed to Inclusion. And you'll find on our website, we've got a recent video, and it's of your neighbor, the UCC Congregational Church over here with Pastor Luke Linden. And it's amazing the stuff they do over there, but he kind of discusses and shares with people little and big things that you do to make it more inclusive for all people. So again, it's on our website. I encourage you to check it out. It's about a 4-minute video. Some really good stuff there. And finally, Safety Town Plus is coming again. That's going to be the week of June 19th through the 23rd. So again, we've adapted it a little bit for children that have some developmental disabilities. So we're very excited about it.
Excellent.
How many participants do you anticipate having in Safety Town Plus?
We usually get anywhere 10 to 12 is kind of there, so it's...
And it happens over at Windfall?
Yeah, we do it at Windfall. It's really great. I mean, like last year, I know the mounted police came out. They brought their horses. Of course, all the safety forces, the fire truck and the ambulance. So the kids get to see this and maybe take some of the nervousness out of it. And yeah,
that's great.
Great stuff.
I do want to bring up the discussion regarding the appointment of a member to the county board. The governor had an original proposal. It was modified in the omnibus, which is the newest version. The CCAO Board of Trustees, I'll just say by divided vote, decided to stay neutral. There was some voiced concerns regarding restricting even more the ability for Board of Commissioners to find appropriate individuals to serve on that, understanding the need. Commissioners can always appoint someone that has that category.
Absolutely.
And there was a great concern that they're actually creating much more restrictions on the
Right.
board. But we were divided, we decided to stay neutral at this point. But I'm not
Good to
sure,
know.
as it gets through to the Senate version, I just,
We don't know.
Public is saying the Senate, there was that discussion as to how best do that. There are other options, I guess, to increasing the size of the board, 2 members, to make sure you've got certain representation. So all that's in the mix, and I think it's good to have that discussion.
It is.
But likewise, not every county is the same. Yeah,
Right.
especially those smaller counties where you only have like a 39,000 population. It's hard to find individuals sometimes that meet those requirements, and putting those restrictions in the Ohio Revised Code makes it more difficult for commissioners to actually make sure you've got the right people at the table and involved in those decisions. And we all agree we want the consumers, we want those represented to be there, but as also we also have representatives from the general community involved as well.
In the last few years, with the appointments we've had to make, we've gotten wonderful applications.
We have, yes.
And so it would be
Yeah.
sad that some of those wonderful applications would be restricted in some way.
Yeah. And regarding the performance audit, has the Budget Commission, since the performance audit has been issued, have you heard from the Budget Commission regarding their, that one issue that was basically tabled last year?
I have not.
Okay.
I have
was
not
wondering
heard
if they-
from them
Okay,
at this point.
I know.
Yeah.
I talked with the Auditor Faber at the reception last week when we went with the county officials and thanked him for his involvement. And obviously, at the CCO level, part of the recommendations involved looking at the ROIC regarding the cash balances, the carryover, and addressing I'll just say, the imprecision or some portions of that. And I think that at least the one thing the report was able to provide is the great diversity in terms of resources for the DD boards. You've got some that have 400%, essentially 400% carryover, which means they can go for 4 years with not having to really have those kind of with their operating budget, and there's others that are down to 10%.
Right.
So it's being able to make sure that there's our provisions in the code that allow, if you will, a good balance of interests. But I think that's the one thing that did help highlight the need at the state level to address this issue. So, but I want to thank you for your cooperation and
Absolutely.
being
The
able
audit
to,
was well
with
worth
that.
it. Good
It was,
Good
yeah.
information.
Yeah, very good
Yeah.
information.
Thank-
All right, thank
thank
you
you,
very much.
Stacy.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Okay, next up, we have Carol Lawler and Heather McDermott from Board of Elections. Is this your last one, Carol?
Yeah.
Yes. What's your
Not
last
that-
day?
Not that you're counting.
End of May.
End of May.
Yes.
Well, then you can always volunteer as a poll worker then.
Sure.
Since you
Kind of know the business, right? Good
Yeah.
morning. Okay, so Heather and I thought we'll do the status of our May 2nd primary special election. It's 1 week from today is Election Day. And of the registered voters in Medina County, there's 130,142. Only 62% of those have something to vote on at this election, so 80,900 people are involved in this election, voters. And you can check if you're, if you have something to vote on, so you don't go to your polling place and go, why isn't it open? At our website, boe.ohio.gov/Medina, and you could check if you have something to vote on, and also if, see a sample ballot, things like that, polling location directions. So we call it primary special election because some precincts have a primary election ballot with just candidates, and some will have a special election ballot with just issues, and some will have a primary special election ballot where they'll have both the candidates and the issues. So we do have one precinct that had their location changed. For just this election, Medina City Ward 1, Precinct D, would have been the only precinct voting at the fairgrounds. They would have had that whole building to themselves. So all the affected voters have been notified by mail, and they're going to York Township Hall, which is the next closest location. They'll vote with the York Township people. So we've been preparing for this election since February 1st. That was the filing deadline for the candidates and issues wanted to be on the ballot. And, not all those candidates needed to run in this primary. Some unopposed were nominated, and they went right, they're gonna be on the November ballot without a primary. March 7th, we started our poll worker training. We've trained over 300 people. It took a couple weeks. And it's important that we trained all the poll workers this time because it's the first election we're going to have new poll books again, new electronic poll books. So you'll see some new equipment out there. March and April, we tested all our voting equipment and those new poll books, and we do that every election. And in mid-April, we sent representatives from our office to the nursing homes, and they took ballots to the people that requested them there. April 20th, we did our public test of the tabulation equipment, so we're in good shape there. So, candidates? It's only a Republican partisan primary this time. In the city of Wadsworth, we have the offices of Mayor, Law Director, Auditor, President of Council, and Council at Large, and then the Ward Council persons from Ward 1, 2, 3, and 4. And Wadsworth Muni Court Judge. There are 8 issues. In the townships, fire and EMS for Brunswick Hills and Chatham, and a local option in Wadsworth Township B for White Timbers. 2 of the schools have construction bond issues, Brunswick City Schools and Buckeye Local School District. Other districts have, we have a fire and EMS at Westfield Fire and Rescue District, and the cities, there's a fire station construction bond issue in the city of Medina, Brunswick, sorry, and no shocking there, and muni income tax in Rittman. So current election statistics. In person, we've had 948 people come in the office to vote in person so far. Absentee mail ballots requested were 652, nursing home ballots 43, and some people even came in and hand carried them home, so that there were just 11 of those. That's another option. So there have been changes due to House Bill 458. There were changes to ID requirements. Federal or state government issued photo ID is required now. So there are changes. You used to be able to use other documents. So it's photo ID is required, and it's by federal or state government issued. The voting hours were adjusted also. Eliminated the Monday before Election Day. Some people did count on that day before Election Day to vote. There will be no voting on Monday before Election Day, but those hours were all added to the week we currently are in. And also, the deadline to apply for a mail-in ballot is now 7 days before the election. So today,
I didn't see that. That's interesting.
yeah, today, due to the time it takes for
Right.
the postal service. So today at 8:30, we're open at 8:30, and we've got signs posted at the office, and so that spread the word. It's also on the website. Today at 8:30 is the last time to apply for to receive an absentee ballot by mail. So then, let's see. When the bill was signed, it eliminated August special elections unless the political subdivision or school district was in a state of fiscal emergency. But Senate Bill 92 is currently being discussed to allow the legislature-initiated constitutional amendments and create that August election. So we're still not sure if we have an August election. So fingers
Well, the
crossed.
Senate approved it, and I guess when we were down there last, for the reception, a lot of discussion
Yeah.
within the House, whether they're going to do the same thing. So.
Yeah, okay, so we're waiting on those results.
Good.
So, early absentee voting's in progress at our office. It started April the 4th. So the first change, that Tuesday, today, 7:30 a.m. to 8:30, is your last chance to request a mailed absentee ballot. The rest of the weekdays this week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we're open 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. for voting. And this weekend, Saturday, 8 to 4, and Sunday, 1 to 5. So this Sunday at 5 o'clock, that would be your last chance to vote in person at the Board of Elections office. After that, you'll go to your polling location on Election Day. So you could track your ballot on our website if you've got an absentee ballot out there at boe.ohio.gov/Medina. And, it'll let you know, when did we get your application? When did your ballot go out? And when did we receive your voted ballot back? And also, additional information can be found at voteohio.gov. Next. Okay, so you can return those ballots in person, by mail, or we have a 24/7 monitored drop box out front at our office at 3800 Stonegate Drive. We're right behind Hobby Lobby and Lighthouse Pools. But they must be postmarked the day before the election, May 1st, and the deadline for us to accept them is now May 6th. We used to have more time for them to get to us, so we need to get those done by May 6th. So next Tuesday is the election. Polls will be open 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Thank you for doing the signs. Any questions?
Vanna White, I guess.
Yeah, I know, she was the Vanna.
I know you've been, for a lot of years, certainly when I was down there, the attempt to eliminate the Monday hours was very important to the boards of elections so they could be ready for the Tuesday election.
Mm-hmm.
And I would presume that applies to you as well. You're relieved that
It helps in our
in getting
prep
prepared.
time, yes.
Yeah.
That was interesting. I did not know that absentee ballot request had been moved.
Yeah, there were a lot of
wait.
items in there that, different changes we were accommodating, yeah.
Super.
You have all enough poll workers for the
Yes.
precincts we have on Tuesday?
Right. So we count on at least 4, 2 of each party per precinct, so 75 precincts are voting, so we have over the 300 that are trained.
Super.
Great report.
Well, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you
thanks.
so
Thank
much.
you. Great job. Good job.
Okay, do we have any public comment today? Okay, we will now move into discussion session. Steve, did you want to go first?
Well, Andy's
you're gonna
here.
lead?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah.
You want me to go last or first?
I would go first. I mean,
First.
she's the
You're up.
president.
So I wanted to take a little bit of time. I appreciate you having me today. I sent you guys a letter last week, and it was based on tracking for, since I first came in the office in 2017, I track our funding and our costs fairly regularly, and there's, under section 4504 of the Ohio Revised Code, it allows local political subdivisions to enact a permissive license fee or tax. And with the market where we're going with cost and where our funding is tracking, I've been trying to hold out for as long as I can before having this discussion with you. But I've reached the point where I'm projecting where we're going. It's time to have the discussion about enacting a $5 permissive fee. It's under 450424, which it will, for Medina County, will generate about $950,000 a year. And what that means for my office is paving an extra 3 to 4 miles of road, doing 1 big bridge, maybe 3 little bridges. So the cost of doing business for our office is significantly increased, like it has for everybody, between labor, construction materials, just the entire market of construction is up significantly. I included some stats for you with my letter as far as what ODOT's seeing, what we're seeing nationally, and what we're seeing locally, and projected forecast is that over the next 5 years, the average rate of cost of construction, they're saying, is going to be another 4.6% over each of the next 5 years. So, we're looking at another 23% increase on that. But one of the big items to consider is that my office is funded almost exclusively through license plate fees, permissive taxes on the license plate registrations, and the gas tax. The gas tax, they're looking at projecting a 40% decrease in fuel consumption from now till 2040, based on the use of electric vehicles and the more fuel efficient cars. So that revenue is going to be going down 40%. My costs are going up an average of, depends on what we're looking at, materials, 10 to 15%, labor's going up. The trends are not going well for me. So I think at this point it's time to, look at maybe scheduling the public hearings to see if, if we could, enact the 450424, which would be, like I said, a $5 permissive fee on each license plate registration.
Do we know how many counties?
Last year's stats, I did look at last year, for 450424, there was 29 counties that had it enacted already.
I think a lot of more, at that time, were waiting to see how the gas tax increase was playing out with the formula, as well as
Right.
at the federal level, they were talking about additional state funding that could have potentially been distributed, but it's not exactly worked out that way.
Yeah, and it is, and I, talking to some other counties, there are several counties that are pursuing it at this point. I think the board knows, but just to confirm that, we don't have a road and bridge levy in Medina County. Our office isn't supported by sales tax or property tax. That's a misunderstanding that a lot of people in the public have is, I'm paying all these property taxes. Why is this bridge in bad shape? Well, your property taxes don't support that operation. So, like just to reiterate, our funding is more through license plate fees, the permissive tax, and the gas tax. So those are the bulk of where the funding comes from. And we did have an increase at the state level with the gas tax, but with the pandemic hitting and how many people were working from home, the increase that we were expecting to see is almost completely wiped out. The first year of the pandemic, we actually took $1 million hit. So that this 950,000 wouldn't even make up quite the first year hit from the pandemic.
I understand we have to, if we're going to enact this, in order to be collected as soon as possible, we would have to enact this by July 1 of this year to start collecting of July 1 of 2024.
That is correct.
So if we would wait after later part of this year to do this, it wouldn't be until 2025.
Correct.
Because you have to go.
It's on the state fiscal year.
In the state fiscal year.
Correct.
So we'd have to make this decision within the next couple months.
Correct.
All right.
And the process is, I think, somewhat painless. It's scheduling 2 public hearings. You schedule the first public hearing, and then there's a time frame, not within, I think, 5 or 7 days, but within 21 days, something like that. The last time we enacted a permissive fee tax, we had the 2 public hearings. My understanding, there was a total of 2 people from the public that came. And they both found out what it was about for $5, and they both got up and left.
Now this is expressly for motor vehicles, correct? It doesn't
for
apply to
license
trailers.
No, it is license plate fees.
Is license plate fees? I thought it also apply to, okay, I was under impression it was just automobiles.
License
And
plates.
anything motorized vehicle, and not just, okay, that, I guess.
There's about 211,000 registrations from Medina County.
Okay, all right.
And you multiply that by 5, you would think it'd be over $1 million. But the state, there's something behind a curtain where there's an administrative fee for them to collect the money and bring it back to Medina County. So, but the projection is about 950,000.
But secondly, it also goes countywide, even if your municipality has their own license tag, or a township that has theirs.
For this specific, for 450424, it
countywide,
is countywide.
everybody, yeah.
There is a base license plate fee, and then between the county, townships, and cities, an aggregate of a total of $30 permissives can be added.
Right.
So right now, I think the highest in the county is 20.
Do you know how many townships or cities or villages are enacting their own fee?
This one?
Well, they don't have the authority.
They
This is
don't-
only
this
county.
one they don't.
The other
Yeah.
fee.
There are, it's all over the board.
Okay.
I think all three cities have enacted
Yeah.
the majority of the ones that they have at their disposal.
right.
A number of the townships have some of them. I have provided information to all 17 townships about what permissives they have at their disposal and which ones they have enacted. I will say they were kind of surprised because they didn't know. So I gave them the information, I'm going to say about 3 years ago. So it may be time to revisit that with new boards of trustees. Just make sure they're because I'm not the only one feeling this crunch with the cost of construction. So, and I know the townships are always looking, for means to be able to pay for their projects as well.
But this one specific user's fee, I'll characterize that, is for your obligation of the 323 miles of county roads and the 281 bridges.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Which, some of those bridges are in municipalities.
Correct. And on
You're
township
obligated.
roads.
Right, yes, right. Okay.
So just as a side note, we're working on a bridge project right now. We're only replacing what they call the superstructure, which is the top, the foundation that's built on. We're not replacing that. $1.2 million. When we originally conceived that project and sought funding for it, it was $700,000. About 6 years ago.
Okay.
So it's just, the price of doing business is just steadily increasing, and the only real means at my disposal to, keep ahead of it is to seek a little bit more funding. And this is one way that we're doing it. We have a very large, robust paving program this year. It's probably one of the biggest ones we've ever had cost-wise, but it's 40% less hot mix than we did in prior years, but it's cost more. So 281 or 323 miles of road. We're looking at about 15 years between resurfacing, so that's about 21 and a half miles a year that we should be resurfacing. We're not achieving that. We're doing some preventative maintenance, chip seal work to extend the life of the pavement. And that works, but we're falling a little bit further behind. There's some projects that we'd like to do. I have some bridges that are designed and sitting on the shelf that I've been applying for grants. I just haven't been successful. So a couple of them are load posted that are restricted for different truck weights that I would like to get back up to being legal loads. Working on trying to find funding for.
No, the last transportation bill, the most recent one that was passed and going to be implemented, there was a program for rural roads, that I understand, and our conversation were we're actually not qualified. We're not rural
eligible.
enough.
We're not eligible for a lot of things, but
Okay.
yeah. So that was not one that we're able to
Okay,
participate
all
in. The state did enact a bridge partnership program. And I may have mentioned this before, but there's 4 rounds of funding. We did put in a bridge for each round, and we're successful in each of those.
Good.
Those are averaging about $700,000 a piece. So that's, next year, just under $3 million that we're getting through grants through the state. But those are bridges that have been longstanding trying to get funding for. They're, funny thing with bridges is they're always deteriorating. We're by law, we're obligated to do an annual inspection, report them both to the state and federal highway, the condition of all our bridges. So that's something that we're very cognizant of the condition of our structures. But we have some older ones that need a little bit of help, and it would be nice to replace some of those.
I'd be in favor of going and proceeding with the required public hearings on this.
So will I.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. And
What's our process? Do we have to do a resolution? Or just,
no, the resolution
We start
is after
advertising
the
it.
fact.
Okay, all right.
I'm not sure if you want me to work with Rhonda or Brian.
Sure.
And we can get some dates together.
and then verify, obviously, with prosecutor's office, we're complying with the time frame. It's kind of, kinda
It's spelled
wonky.
out pretty
Yeah, I
pretty
know.
clear,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Mike will give us sound advice.
make sure we comply. All right.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks,
I
Andy.
appreciate
Thank you, Andy.
Chris, do you have anything? Steve, anything more?
Question, I guess, Mike, we met last Friday regarding the EMA agreement, made some edits, change it. Did you want to come up? And our hope is that there will be discussion about this tomorrow at the EMA, executive committee.
Yes, based on our discussion last Friday.
Oh.
If you look at paragraph 4, I did do something there that we hadn't talked about, but
Okay.
it's in red. The additional 2 members that would be eligible for being appointed by the executive committee, you had indicated for terms that stipulated at the time of appointment. And just internally, we had some discussion that might, so my suggestion is the terms of office of all members appointed to the executive committee, whether statutory appointees or additional members, shall be 1 year. It sets a standard because up till now, we haven't really known.
Okay.
Unless otherwise stipulated at the time of the appointment. So it sets a presumption that it's a 1-year appointment, whoever is appointed. I think that's kind of useful. And then I just added, members shall continue to serve until a successor is appointed and takes office. Then you have continuity.
Sure.
Then in paragraph 8, we discussed some authorization for the executive committee to adopt rules and delegate some authority. So I've added that language may adopt such rules and regulations as it deems necessary for its operations, and may delegate authority to the director for expenditures within the budget and monetary limits as the executive committee sees fit. I also added in the next sentence, authorizing them to cooperate with participating subdivisions, non-participating political subdivisions, the state of Ohio, and with other states and federal government. It's the S there is, I need to delete. There's not more than one federal government.
Thank God.
Thank goodness, yes.
Well, so far.
At the present time,
Yeah. Depends on how you look at it, I guess.
Yeah.
Then,
I had a question on section 8.
yes.
That was, when we reviewed this at our special meeting, we had referenced the kind of the technical advisory committee. That language is just slightly different than what I was envisioning when we talked about that. Does your interpretation of that revised language contemplate the creation of a technical committee if the executive, the conversation, since not everybody was at that meeting, I mean, obviously all of us were, but if the executive committee, as it's historically been constituted, might need to be changed to make it compliant with the statute, the thought was there'd be a technical advisory type of a group established, but we wanted it to be established by the executive committee. And so when we say executive committee in section 8 shall be responsible for carrying out of the provisions of this agreement through the director of emergency management, may adopt such rules and regulations that it deems necessary for its operations. Does that include, in your mind, the creation of such a subcommittee?
Well, I was kind of borrowing from our experience with the data board that has just general authorization for rules and regulations, and we use that to set up a technical advisory committee.
Okay.
And actually, currently, they've for years, 30
Yes.
years, they've had a technical advisory committee that was created under those prior resolutions, and it didn't have specific language that said they did. So I would presume it's consistent interpretation that they have the ability to actually establish any rules and regulations necessary for its operations. And that makes, what he's written makes sense to me.
Yeah,
It's
and that, I just
consistent.
wanted to clarify that, yeah, because it doesn't
Yeah.
expressly state that they can delegate to another committee, because the reference to delegation then in that continuation of that sentence is may delegate authority to the director for expenditures, which makes sense.
But that's an and.
Right, right,
And in
right.
terms of legislative construction.
Yeah,
Yeah, that common and significant, I think, but.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we don't run into an issue where we need to revise further to permit the creation of that technical committee.
Yeah.
I could simply add at the end, that's me, I believe.
Oh, okay. I was like, what is it?
All right.
Sorry. I have it on silent, but it's still vibrating.
Got my attention.
Okay.
I'm thinking of adding at the end of it, as it deems necessary for its operations, including the establishment of technical advisory bodies or committees.
Including the establishment of other committees.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. We don't have to, you don't have to specify
Yeah.
as to, yeah.
Well, and I think that's pretty inherent.
Yeah.
I agree.
I agree with that, too.
I think probably we could just go with this language.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate, Aaron, when you brought it up on Friday, that section. I think this is a good addition.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's helpful. And I don't think I changed the 11 really significantly. I would, what I plan to do is eliminate the bold language just to make it consistent. And I will probably try to prepare a red line version and a final version so that they can see what the changes are.
Sure.
And you're bringing this tomorrow?
Yes, I'll
Okay.
try to email it out today.
Well, I was going to ask, could we make sure that the committee and the chair have the ability to review this beforehand?
Right.
Yeah, I was going to email it out this
Super,
afternoon.
good.
Okay.
Because as we know, some of the members that are there actually represent the mayors. So it'd be nice for them to share it with the CEOs or the chief executive officers of those jurisdictions, City of Medina and Wadsworth,
So
since they represent them as designees.
Yeah, so I think we'll be set for conversation.
Sounds great.
tomorrow.
Great.
Appreciate you turning that around quickly.
Thank you.
Thanks,
job.
Mike. Aaron, anything else?
Nothing for me.
Anyone else? Okay, we are going to go into executive session once we have a motion for it, but I do want to announce that we're going to go off live stream once we go into executive session, but we will be back on live stream at 11 a.m. for a budget hearing for our county auditor.
I would like to move, we go into executive session to consider the employment and compensation of a public employee.
Second.
Roll?
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweatting.
Yes. Thank you. We'll see you at 11
Thank you.
a.m. Okay, we are opening our budget hearing for the county auditor's budgets. So, did you want to go?
Yeah, just go up here briefly. So I've provided you with copies of the auditor's budget documents that we received yesterday. It's formatted similarly to the usual budget request forms. It includes the auditor general account, the weights and measures sub-account, again, a sub-account for data processing and tax collection and budget commission, and then on that second page of the first group was the real estate assessment fund. There are several key areas for discussion, I think, today, but I was going to really allow hopefully with your permission, allow the auditor to basically summarize his request, and then perhaps we'll follow up with questions and clarifications as necessary. So, Mr. Capretta, would you like to come up and?
I'm going to actually turn it right over to Dennis, but I want to
Okay.
make sure first. Can we shoot a copy of this?
They have a copy of everything you've provided me, so. So, Dennis, do you want to come up?
No, we're live streaming.
Okay.
So Dennis comes up. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for your time today. We've submitted our revisions to the 2023 budget, and I think that the most significant piece that maybe is unique this year from previous years is that when Mr. Capretta came into office, we discovered, frankly, very significant pay raises that were instituted by the former auditor. I don't know which documents we were able to provide, but the most recent was from March 6th, right before the former auditor vacated office.
But on the list, one of them is gone, correct? Or
Well, I think that one of those employees is no longer here. That's true.
Right. Okay.
Significantly,
To confirm, is it Erica Rafin?
Yeah. Yeah.
we have a sheet. I don't know. Do you have this worksheet?
Mhm.
If you turn to that, if you don't mind, the far column at the bottom, that demonstrates that year over year, the average raise in salaries was 25%. So some of them, we've got some in the 30s. I see one on here that's a 16%.
You're saying historically 25% every year?
From last year
Oh, okay. Just this year. Okay.
to just this year.
All right.
Now, in the past, I've not tracked in any fashion what the raises from year to year to year had been compared to other offices. I know that as we approached the pandemic and through the pandemic, I know that the former auditor, let's just say, was very frugal in raises. So this is a accumulation, apparently, of setting things straight. I don't know how to explain it. But the bottom line is we're at about a 25% increase in salaries overall.
We received this list of employees. How many, beyond this list, how many additional employees were added? How many bodies do we have now over this list?
In the real estate side, we've added, I think, two staff. On the general fund side, we haven't added anybody.
Okay.
So
So there's no new employees
No
in the
new
general,
employee, yeah.
under the general fund?
we've replaced people.
Right, but there's no new positions
No new positions in the
under
general
the
fund.
general fund portion of it?
No, sir.
Got it.
Was there always,
So Sharon Cresswell, of course, she's no longer with us. Kyle is filling that role. Cynthia is filling Kyle's role. Patty is filling the role of the backup that we've always had. Denise is still there. Sue Doherty is still there. The staff are unchanged as far as the number of slots on the general fund.
Who was the backup payroll person prior to this?
It's changed. Audra was for about a year. There's Gorman, was that her name? Susan Gorman.
Here about a month, maybe.
We've had some people, come and go.
And then we had Cynthia Payne. She came in temporarily under Sue Gorman. And then when Sue left,
She moved up.
she moved up.
Right.
So,
it's just, I guess what I'm saying, we're counting 28 here, and there's not 28 here.
I believe that's only a list, that second document, the smaller list is just of those increases that were granted. Kyle, you supplied that, I believe. Can you explain that, Liz?
Yeah, so this just shows the differences between the 2022 rate, so who was there in 22, and then who's still here in 23, minus people who have left.
yeah, generally, the commissioners have traditionally looked, at least in Medina County, in several different pieces of the office. But primarily, we would look at, well, say 3 areas. Overall general fund, weights and measures, That's a reasonably sizable subset of the general fund and the real estate assessment.
But I guess my question is, some of the newer people, the starting salaries are significant, correct?
There are some starting salaries on the real estate assessment side that are more in line with what the current market is for those positions. But what I would ask is, if we look at the one number that I think is the most important number when we talk about general fund at least, we had been at $470,000 in 2022, the salary. So on our first worksheet, second line item, there's a column 2022 actual, it says 470,570. If we only took that number and multiplied it by the 1.25, we would be at $587,000. We're asking for $582,000 in the far right column on that line item.
That actually leads right into my question about the shorter list. Kyle, you had some insight on that. There's 19 people on that list, I think, right? So are those 19 people, are those the only people who are still here who were here before?
Generally, I think that there are a few people that have either, let's see,
Let me change.
yeah, 2 people or at least that have left from that list.
Okay, well, I guess what I'm getting at is I want to make sure that that 1.25 number is meaningful if the 19 people on this list are all of the people who are continuing to work there. Because otherwise, we're just selecting a patch of 19 to show 1.25, and I don't know that those numbers are apples to apples. So are there other folks who still work there, who worked there for the past administration and still work there, who aren't included on that list of 19?
No, everybody on the list, there isn't anybody who was in 22 that's not on the list.
So we're going from 19 to 28 employees. That's significant.
I don't know that that's...
Yeah, I would say, I guess, not to put words in anybody's mouth, but I don't know that's a change from 19 to 28. The way I look at it is, whatever the number of employees was, some employees have left, so they wouldn't be on this list of 19, right? The list of 19 represents, if I went down that list, even though some of them aren't still with the new office, the list of 19 represents every employee who was a previous administration employee and the rate that they were set on for 2023. Is that a fair?
I think so, yeah, so they, essentially, this list is a list of employees who are under the old auditor, who received a significant raise, who are still there, minus the 2 or 3 people.
Just for clarity, that's this list?
Yes.
Okay, got it, okay.
So those are just the employees who received a significant raise, or are those all the employees who used to be, who were from the previous administration?
Generally,
all of them.
So that's my concern. We're going from 19 employees to 28.
So so there should be 9 names on the
Right.
full list that aren't on there that are new employees.
Right.
And how many people left?
I think there is maybe 4 to 5, maybe 5.
Okay.
Like on the list, there's just 3 names that are no longer. I think Sharon's on the list, Erica, and Sue Pappas.
Right, but that's our concern, is that this list now has 28 names.
So this list is people that earned money last year and are earning money this year. So you'll see, like, Cynthia Payne is not on here as an example. She didn't have a 22 pay to increase. She didn't work here last year.
I know, but forget the dollar amounts of pay. I'm just saying bodies.
But
We're going from 19
But we
to
had that
28.
position filled, but there's no name on this list because that employee is gone. This list is not everybody that worked in the office in 2022.
That's what Kyle just said.
No, it's everybody that's still here.
Right.
Okay. So how many?
Mine is Sharon Creswell.
Yeah, how many, and Erica's not here on,
And
is on
Erica
this.
and Susan,
So how many
yeah.
were there last year?
There were probably about 28 to 30 employees that were on the books.
So you're seeing only net increase of two employees
I think
for all divisions?
I think that's correct.
Only new?
Correct.
Okay.
And again, it's on the real estate side, not the general fund side.
Got it.
And that's when your number is FTEs, right? Not, it's not, the part-time versus full-time structure. When your number is full-time equivalent
Yeah, we're
employees.
Yeah, so one of our changes that came about, so there's a name that's missing from the short list. He was a part-time employee as a data collector. He's no longer with us. We have somebody new there, and that's going to be a full-time position. We're trying to bolster our appraisal function due to the reappraisal that we're kicking off now this year.
Gotcha.
We've already kicked off.
So you're going to be doing more in-house on the appraisal side than prior years?
There are some functions that we're doing in-house that were not done in the past, such as quality control. There was no oversight accomplished 6 years ago of that team, the contractor team.
Right.
So-
Now, does that include CAUV under the real estate, or is that under a general fund obligation?
No, that's real estate assessment.
Real estate assessment, okay, because we had discussions with the Farm Bureau. It seems obviously you're bumping up the inspection and oversight and in reviewing those applications.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. Not only are we reviewing these applications a little more maybe than had been done in the past, we're also trying to incorporate some outreach efforts to
Right, to help assist people to at least, to conform to the Ohio Revised Code in terms of their management of those resources.
That's right. I mean, Mr. Capretta and I talked extensively about that. Our only goal is to make sure anybody that can qualify does qualify.
Right.
And we want to help people do that.
And that they understand what the obligations are. Like if they're
That's
going to
right.
go for forest credits, they're going to have to manage that. They're just not going to have to walk away and say, hey, we're doing lumbering.
That's right.
So I think we had a pretty good discussion, Aaron and I, with the Farm Bureau on that on Friday, so, okay.
Go ahead.
So this list is it? We're not adding any more employees this year?
We are not adding more employees this year.
We've talked in percentages, and that's helpful to a point to me. And the number that amounts to, like you say, the increase is around 25%. I think I came up with 23.6, something like that. That was annualized, I think, 111,000 and some change. The difference between the 22 and 23.
Yes, sir.
What, in terms of dollars, general fund dollars, how much of that is summarized in that short list of the 19 employees? Meaning, so if I annualized everybody's salary on that list of 19, how much of that $111,000 relates to those increases that were made by the former administration?
So I think all of it. I think all of it because I will tell you, and we talked about this in our meeting. We replaced our IT leadership. The former IT supervisor left us, and we wanted to bolster that position. In doing so, the market demanded a higher salary. Now, traditionally, the IT function is split 50-50 between REA and general fund. What we thought was appropriate, because in talking to Mr. Capretta, we believe that the real bolstering is necessary for the REA. So we changed that, and we're allocating more of that position to the REA because we don't think the general fund should pick up that increase in salary. So I would say, we're talking about the same dollar. These are the same people. These increases in pay are what we're absorbing in this increase.
So the two new employees that we're talking about aren't necessarily impacting that increase from the 22 amount to the 23 amount. It's most, if not all, is tied to the 19 on this list.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The 470 going to 582.
Yeah.
That is entirely general fund. There are no new positions filled over there. We haven't added new people over there.
And the new people or the people who've replaced have been brought in at a level consistent with what their predecessors were making?
Yes, sir. Except for the IT.
Yeah.
I do have a question, and maybe I should, well, I'll just say Roger Bickle, Mike Kovac had given him a rate of $21.50, and I noticed that actually in the sheet you gave us, he's got him at $22.50. I presume that's not an error, and that you increased it. Are there other individuals that you likewise increased beyond what Auditor Kovac had requested?
So on the real estate assessment side, so
Yeah.
Roger is one of our CAUV guys.
Right.
We're trying to put him into more of a leadership role.
Got it. Okay.
So there are some changes in that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so that wasn't a mistake, because all the documents all said 2150 except for the one, so that's why I was asking, so, okay, very good.
And then,
I want to apologize if it looks like we added 10 or 11 people. Is that how it looked?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to apologize for that. What I'd like to do is get the commissioners to come over to my office one day so I can actually show you around exactly what we did and who's sitting where and who's doing what.
Yeah,
I think that would be real helpful.
we're just looking at these two lists.
Right. And I want to make that clear. If we
Well, I
can
think
do
a
that.
lot of your people are out in the field, so
Right.
some of those functions,
But-
like we saw, you had 4 CAUV, well, you had Joe Del Santer, who's on the RE side, and you had 3 other individuals, and they did a very good job explaining the CAUV. So we did see that function loud and clear on Friday with the Farm Bureau, which is appropriate, since that's where CAUV largely has an impact.
And I'd like you to see more of it.
Yeah,
I'd
sure.
like to invite you over.
The,
So we can take a look and ask questions.
There was another anomaly with contracted services going from 150-64, got to
Yeah,
put my glasses on, to
164.
900,000.
Yes. So real estate assessment is not a linear function in our office.
Mhm.
So we completed a triennial update. That cost is fairly low. In between years of any kind of work like that, just doing new construction, those types of things, is a fairly low contracted item year. The reappraisal is nearly $1.5 million. So that's one significant thing that we're kicking off this year. Will we spend $900,000? Probably not. It's the REA fund. We want to be appropriated it now, and then we just push it into next year if we don't spend it.
How much of that 900 is specifically tied to the appropriation for the reappraisal?
I think that we're looking at about $600,000 spending with the reappraisal this year.
Is that under the contract?
There's milestones that are spelt out. So my view always is budget for everything you need to up front. If you don't need it, it just gets rolled back into the fund.
Have you contracted with a firm to conduct the reappraisal?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you have a dollar amount associated with
Yeah, I think it's like a little over 1.4 million.
Okay.
There's a couple other contracts that we're looking at that are in relation to that. So as an example, you may be aware that we do aerial photography. The aerial photography is between $150,000 and $200,000 per year. We didn't have anything scheduled for this year. We're probably going to fly later this year.
Is that in combination with the highway engineer's office?
Yeah, because you have a GIS technician down here.
So the engineer's office uses the imagery that we buy.
Got it.
Yes, sir.
All right. I do have a separate issue. Well, actually, the data processing board, as you probably know, the commissioners provide do the minutes and so forth. Historically, in the past, when I was first commissioner a long time ago, actually the board itself or the auditor's office provided that function. And the commissioners assumed it for various reasons in the late 1990s. And I know that they're creating another special committee and all that obligation. And of course, with our staffing configuration, we wondered if it'd be possible if the auditor's office could, in my mind, resume taking over the responsibility for taking the minutes of this. Of course, the data processing board reviews them and approves them and so forth. And honestly, at the time, I'll just say there was a dispute between the treasurer and the auditor over all the minutes, and that's why the commissioners if you will, intervened and said, okay, we'll take the minutes, and then nobody can argue.
And
But
the meeting's only once a month.
And, yeah.
My first meeting was last month, matter of fact, Commissioner Harrison was there.
Right,
so
right.
There is some input that I'd like to.
Well, sure, but we would like to say who has the, basically administrative, since you are the administrator for the data processing board, we are asking that your office provide the secretarial support.
Oh, I think,
Okay.
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
And then the
That's-
commissioners would take the minutes?
No, you provide the
one of your
secretarial. You take,
employees.
one of your people would take the minutes, and then
Oh,
it wouldn't be a commissioner
We were just
function.
talking about that, so we were discussing in our office.
Yeah, it would be just, rather than a
Easier.
commissioner function, it would basically be whoever, the Ohio Revised Code provides that as you know, the auditor is the administrator of that, and we're asking just the secretarial function be, part of that.
So if I get back to you on this?
Okay, well.
Yeah, it's a once a month meeting.
It's a once-a-month obligation,
Yes.
whatever, so
I'll
it's,
take a look at it.
it helps free up Brian for all of his public information and all
Sure.
the other stuff we gotta do, so.
Do you have other questions, Chris?
One other, just a comment. You've asked for 12 months of funding for some of these positions, including your new IT person at the 90-some thousand that you're paying annually. But in fact, that's not a 12-month salary. You've just brought him on for.
That's an outstanding point, and I apologize.
So
Yes,
this-
sir.
Some scaling back.
Yes, so the 580 needs to
Proportionality,
scale
yeah.
back to take off the first quarter in some cases.
Right.
Well, yeah, so we'll do some calculation and
Okay.
take a look at that and align it correctly with the period that those people are actually in place.
Yes, sir.
And I guess the proposed plan here would be to, after this hearing, for Brett in finance and I to sit down and go through your request in some detail, since we just got it yesterday, and get back to you. We'll probably have questions, and we'll come up with some draft numbers to work with you on and provide to the board. And there may be further discussion that's necessary, so.
So just so you know,
if
when you.
that's acceptable to the
That's totally, so when you come back in October for an annualized budget hearing, this is how it kind of goes, where you provide us with information, but normally the information is further in advance, and then we spend the half hour asking questions, so.
Okay.
Just so you know, this is.
A pre,
Pardon?
this is a pre.
Well, no, this had to be done because we had only approved the first quarter, so, it was an extraordinary, we don't often have changes.
Okay.
So I'm letting you know that in October, when you will present your 2024 budget, it will be similar to this where you provide information and then there'll be a question and answer session.
Sure.
So I'm just letting you know how it's going to go forward.
And then I had a question on the REA salary line item as well. That there was, we'd mentioned the increase, the primary increase, if not all the increase in the general fund is based on the increases that happened with the past administration. There's an increase reflected on the REA salaries as well. Is that primarily because of the new employees? Is that where the new employees?
Well, those same employees were a part of the salary increase,
Okay.
so that's a big piece
Gotcha.
of spending more in the REA.
So some of those increases were dictated by the changes we've already talked about?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So you're saying in October's budget hearing, the percentage on these salary lines and on these increases will be much more reasonable for 2024? Because like this number is unsustainable, you know what I mean, year after year. You know?
Oh, this is,
Right.
I get what she's doing.
we can't do 25% raises every year. That's beyond, that's incompetent. We aren't going to do that.
And Aaron, I think, just for clarification.
Yep.
Those increases affected both the real estate assessment fund and general fund salary accounts, based on the charge-off of the employee salary, how it's split.
Right.
In some cases, so.
And I appreciated that breakdown in the full report of who's where on that, because I think there were some preliminary discussions about, or some of the materials I looked at before that related to maybe moving some more of those onto the general fund, moving some funds off of the real estate, the REA and into the general fund. But it's pretty consistent with what's been done in the past?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Something that we kind of talked a little bit about, and I'll just broach this today if you don't mind. There's a fee for conveyances, and the conveyance fee is supposed to pay for conveyances, the staff that do the conveyances. It's allowable out of the REA, but we've been traditionally, we split that between the general fund and the REA. In other counties that I've worked for, we've increased that fee, the conveyance fee, to be more dedicated to the conveyance function. We would be interested, if you were interested, in talking about that at some point, because right now we collect roughly $3.6 million in fees that go to the general fund. Some of it trickles back to the REA for the conveyance. We can increase that by one more dollar, which would be another $1.2 million to the county.
That's the real property transfer tax?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this board has had discussions in the past about that remaining permissive dollar, and has chosen not to do that. But it's probably a subject matter that can be discussed further at some point.
I think without prejudging anything, my inclination would be, if something like that's coming down the pike, I'd love to see it in the context of expansion of services, and enhancement of services.
Right, because RPTT doesn't necessarily have to be just spent on the auditor. We fund the recorder's office with it, we fund tax maps with it, so it isn't an increase just to the auditor's budget lines.
I understand that completely.
Right.
No, it's a significant amount of money that has to be prudently to your discretion.
But we pay for other departments with it too.
Right, clearly.
If there were a way to maybe streamline the recording process, across the departments, and that would maybe be a reservoir that could be dove into for purposes of that. Because there's, the step-by-step process of that happens is a little bit convoluted right now. Starting third floor, you work your way.
That's the context of when I've done this in the past, is trying to rearrange that flow between tax maps, how things happen,
We do electronically. We're one of the few counties that do electronic recording of deeds now. So that has eliminated some, but the fact that we have tax maps and recorders right next to each other now, that has eliminated some of the searching through the buildings, so that was a nice move too. So we have made progress in that area.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Quick comment. The reappraisal that's coming up, I'm looking forward to being successful. But Mike Kovac did give us a great team, the Clement Shaw appraisal team. It's a great company, and I feel real comfortable working with them.
So when's the next appraisal year? 25?
Yes, sir.
And that contract's been signed and
Right.
approved by
Right.
Forrest,
Okay.
and
I'm real comfortable with this company.
Okay, all right.
So I don't know if you ever heard of them before.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've used
they've been
them.
around for
We've
years.
used
I'm glad he chose that company, and they've been around.
I think Ferris Brown used Clement Shaw.
Oh, that long? Okay.
Yeah, it goes way back.
John's father, family has been doing this for over 100 years.
And that's the 1.4 contract that you mentioned?
Yes, sir.
The price of that? Yeah.
I just want to mention that. I think they're great to work with. I feel very good with them.
Thank you.
do you have any other questions, Chris?
I don't right now.
Do you? Yeah, we will.
So this concludes our,
This concludes our public hearing. We may have more questions, which Chris will bring down to you.
All right.
And we'll, at some point, finalize the budget for this year.
Yeah, we hope we can get through this in May and get everything wrapped up. So, some of your line items are, I think the salary account is in a deficit position now. So we need to take action on that fairly soon, just to get that back in the black. So.
okay, all right, good.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, before I make a motion to adjourn, I did have a conversation with Mike Lyons, Prosecutor's Office, regarding the license fee, and we will have to do a resolution, which he's preparing with Andy, setting those hearing dates. So that's the next procedure, so just for the public's knowledge. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Roll?
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes. Thank you for coming, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.